Good day, everyone. For Telesur, I'm Cody Weddle in Caracas, Venezuela. We begin today with news here in Caracas. President Nicolas Maduro is set to announce a new set of economic measures on Tuesday. The president's plans will seek to assist Venezuelan workers in their efforts to improve the productivity of the nation's domestic industry. Maduro is scheduled to make the announcements during his annual State of the Union address at the National Assembly. Meanwhile, a new poll released on Sunday indicates that the Venezuelan people continue to reject the nation's right-wing opposition. Conducted by the independent company Hinterlaces, the poll shows that the majority of the population believe the opposition is lacking in proposals, leadership, and unity. According to Hinterlaces, only 18% of the population currently support the opposition. And as the Venezuelan opposition fails to connect with the majority of the population, the Maduro government is working with Saudi Arabia to stabilize global oil prices. As a follow-up to the president's visit to the Middle Eastern country earlier this month, a Venezuelan delegation met with Saudi officials on Sunday to discuss a new strategy to raise the price of crude. Ecuadorian President Rafael Correa has pledged that his government will not cut public investment despite falling oil prices. The president says that Ecuador has a clear strategy for balancing public spending, which will not affect the state's capacity to pay its debts. Correa adds that the fall in world oil prices responds to a geopolitical offensive to harm Russian President Vladimir Putin. And to Argentina, federal attorney Alberto Nisman has been found dead in his home. Now it comes as Nisman was investigating the 1994 bombing of the Jewish Amia Center. For the latest on his death, here's our correspondent Leo Pobletti.
The Ministry of Security confirmed in the early hours of Monday morning the death of federal prosecutor Alberto Nisman, who was found dead on Sunday night in the bathroom of his 13th floor apartment in the Buenos Aires neighborhood of Puerto Madero by a single gun wound. A .22 caliber handgun was found beside the body. Federal prosecutor Fain ratified the death a short time later. Argentine Chief of Cabinet Jorge Capitanich confirmed the statement issued by the Ministry of Security announcing the death of Nisman a few hours earlier. Capitanich said that the judge who is in charge of the investigation into the death of Nisman has all the support from the security forces to ensure total clarification of this painful fact. The Fiscal Public Ministry also expressed its deep regret at the death of federal prosecutor Alberto Nisman and sends its condolences to his family and friends and his team of AMIA Fiscal Research Unit, which he led since September 2004. Now, Nisman was due to appear in Congress this afternoon to explain the complaint he filed against President Cristina Fernandez last week over the signing of the Memorandum of Understanding with Iran. Coming to you from the Buenos Aires morgue, this is Leo Pobletti from the south, and as soon as all other information does emerge, you'll be first to know here on Telesur.
Moving on, the new members of the Haitian President Michel Martelly's government are set to be sworn in on Monday. President Martelly announced the new cabinet, which includes 18 ministers, via his Facebook account on Sunday. Bolivian President Evo Morales will be sworn in on Wednesday for his second presidential term. The ceremony will take place in the archaeological site of Tiwanaku. That's the oldest city in the Americas. It will be preceded by 4 indigenous rituals. Now, the rituals are intended to bring health and success to the president throughout his term. Morales finishes his term in the year 2020. For an update now on gang violence and corruption in Mexico, we go to our correspondent Clayton Kahn.
The colonel who was in charge of the 102nd Infantry Battalion involved in the extra-official mass execution of 22 presumed organized crime members in June in the town of Tlatlaya in the state of Mexico has taken up legal measures to evade arrest warrants for his involvement in the case due to fears of being tortured by the authorities. Although the Colonel Raul Aparicio is not facing any official charges yet for the murders, he was removed from his post weeks after the events. Now, the news comes as the Mexico State's prosecutor's office is coming under sharp scrutiny for its apparent role in torturing capturing 3 witnesses of the Tlatlaya massacre, as well as potentially trying to slow down the National Commission on Human Rights investigation of the case. 20 Mexico State officials are being investigated for what some are calling an attempt to cover up the extent of the military's involvement in the case. This is Clayton Khan reporting for Telesur here in Mexico City.
The Colombian government and FARC guerrillas have issued a joint statement in which they announce a series of agreements for the new round of peace talks in Cuba. Experts will join the peace talks to analyze the origins of the armed conflict and its victims. In mid-February, a second delegation of social movements and organizations will join the peace talks as well as part of a gender subcommittee. And staying in Colombia, the government has issued an arrest warrant and will appeal to the Interpol for the capture of Maria Pilar Hurtado. She's the former head of the Colombian intelligence service during Álvaro Uribe's presidency. Hurtado was responsible for intercepting phone calls to key political opposition figures under Uribe's government. The former head of intelligence was exiled to Panama in 2010. Chilean President Michelle Bachelet will head to the United Nations Security Council on Monday to address world leaders. Now, during the session, Bachelet will speak on the Israel-Palestine conflict. She will also discuss the prevention of international conflicts through decreasing inequality and increasing social justice. And in world news, we go to Yemen, where Houthi rebels and the army are fighting for control of the capital city of Sana'a. Clashes broke out when Yemen's presidential guard opened fire on armed Houthis who had gathered close to the presidential palace. The Houthis are demanding the government draft a new constitution. The Yemeni government is considering calling for early general elections to solve the standoff. And in Geneva, a new round of nuclear talks between Iran and the major world powers has ended with little progress. Members of the international group participating in the dialogue have been attempting to reach a final agreement by June. Some members of the negotiating delegation say they plan to step up efforts to make significant advances by March. European Union foreign ministers announced Monday that they will hold a series of meetings to discuss the threat of radical Islam. They will specifically discuss the return of Europeans from countries such as Syria and Iraq. Now, it comes despite the fact that EU member countries such as France and England have actively supported Syrian rebel groups by providing them with training and weapons. Some estimate that nearly 5,000 Europeans have joined extremist groups fighting in Syria. Afghan officials have confirmed that the Islamic State group is operating within their borders. The Afghan Taliban have rejected the claim. That group insists that all militants in the country are members of the Taliban. Army leaders have reported that they are ready to fight any group regardless of its affiliation. One Palestinian man was killed Sunday from inhaling tear gas fired by Israeli forces during a funeral in the West Bank. With more on this latest disturbance there, here's our correspondent Noor Herzine.
Here in Gaza, the situation is calm. However, in the West Bank, there has been clashes over the past 2 days. One Palestinian Bedouin man died of inhaling tear gas that was fired by the Israeli forces during a funeral for a Palestinian man in southern Israel. At the same time, here in Gaza, the residents welcomed the happy news that Egypt decided to reopen Rafah border both ways for 3 days, starting from tomorrow, Tuesday, until Friday.
Thanks again to Noor. Moving on now, fighting in the east of Ukraine continues following a full-scale military operation launched by Kiev over the weekend. The Russian government claimed that Ukrainian President Petro Poroshenko rejected a peace plan proposed by Moscow. The rebel forces are requesting that the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe force Kiev to uphold the ceasefire agreed upon last year. That group has been monitoring the conflict. On a cultural note, today marks the celebration of Martin Luther King Jr. Day in the United States. The day commemorates the life of the civil rights leader and his ideals. Different memorial events will be held throughout the country. The King Center, which works on preserving the leader's legacy, is urging U.S. citizens to take advantage of the holiday to help others. Meanwhile, protests have also been planned to raise awareness of the problem of ongoing race inequality in the United States. Still in the United States, the film American Sniper, directed by Clint Eastwood, broke box office records, making over $90 million on its opening weekend. The film has been nominated for several Oscar categories, but has also sparked controversy. The film, which is based on the life of American soldier Chris Kyle, has been criticized for inciting and glorifying violence. Plenty more on those stories and others at our website, telesurtv.net/English. For Telesur English, I'm Cody Weddle. Have a great Monday.